last several weeks, we've been talking about our summer sermon series, Chosen to Serve. We began with talking about how we should look beyond ourselves to see the greater world around us and identify those places where we are needed, where God's love and grace and presence is needed. And then we looked a little bit to our next inclination, which is naturally to find an excuse to not go to those places where God's love and grace is needed. And now we're talking about identifying and knowing and having a passion that will overcome those excuses, that will compel us to get out into this world and be God's love and grace within it. So that's where we're at. But I have to start this morning with a caveat. I have to say that the things that I need to say this morning are not political. The things that I need to say this morning are not to compel you to vote for or against any particular party or politician or policy. My Lord told me that I should give to Caesar what is Caesar's and give to God what is God's. Because Caesar will do what Caesar will do. My concern is, what are we doing? What are Christians doing? What are we doing as followers of the way? Luke records that early in Jesus' ministry, immediately after he was baptized, he went to the synagogue where he grew up in Nazareth, and he walked in and opened a scroll and read from it, then rolled the scroll up and sat down. The words that he read from the book of Isaiah are important because those words outlined his ministry, his purpose for being here among us. And in turn, those outline our ministry as well. Because as Christians, we are called to carry on that ministry. So let's take a look at these words that Jesus read. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. So my concern today is not the political. My concern is not who you voted for or didn't vote for, who you think should lead the country. My concern is, do we have these words in our hearts and our very beings as we go out into God's world? My concern is, do these words drive what we do and how we respond to this world? My concern is, do these words come to mind when we hear of events like Charlottesville or Barcelona or what has happened in Florida or what is going on between us and North Korea? That is my concern this morning. I'm tired. I'm really tired. And I'm not tired because of all the things going on in my little world. Those of you who know me and have been around me at all lately know that Lisa and I are selling our house out south of town, and we're buying another house in town, and that is a torturous affair, as many of you know very well. Next time I'll just let the place burn, but that's another story. But all that is just work. Lisa is starting her new job. I'm about to go back to school. There are a lot of things that are getting me busy and making me tired, but that's not the tired I am talking about. Because I can rest from that tired. I can rest from that activity, and I can come back at it tomorrow rested. The tired I am talking about is much, much deeper within. The tired I am talking about comes from videos like this.
I'm Christian, but I'm not homophobic.
I'm Christian and I'm definitely not perfect.
I'm Christian, but I'm not closed-minded.
But I'm not unaccepting.
But I'm not uneducated.
But I am not judgmental.
But I'm not conservative.
I'm not ignorant, but I don't place myself on a pedestal.
I'm Christian, but I don't have all the answers.
But I am accepting.
But I am queer.
I am gay, but I am a feminist.
I'm a feminist.
Definitely am a feminist.
But I do believe in science. In fact, I think science makes God look really cool.
I'm not afraid to talk about sex.
I love me some Beyonce.
But I love wine.
I do believe in monogamy before sex, but I will give you sex advice if you need it.
But I do go to church on Sundays.
I was a Young Life camp counselor.
I do listen to Christian music. Christian rock, Christian rap, T-Mac, all the cool kids.
I have friends from all walks of life and different religions.
I love them all.
I guess what I'd like people to know about Christianity today is that we're all kind of not crazy.
We shouldn't be judged on just the people that you see in the media or just the people that you've met in your everyday life. Every Christian is different and we deserve a chance to explain ourselves.
A lot of people think that Christianity ruins people, but to me, I think it's people that are ruining Christianity. You never really see the good that happens. You only see the hypocrites and the people who put themselves on a higher pedestal.
But at its core, it really is about love and acceptance and being a good neighbor.
Just because we prescribe to a faith that has some really terrible people in it doesn't make all of us terrible.
I don't think that Christians should judge people for who they are and what they do. I think everybody is in a different part of life on their own path to wherever they're trying to go. We're all people, and I think love is the most important thing.
I love that, but I love wine. I'm going to have to apologize because I do have a script this morning. I usually don't use a script, but today I need one to keep me from going off on tangents that I would be inclined to do without a script. The reason this video makes me tired is not for what they said. The reason this video makes me tired is for the very reason that it had to be made. Why did it have to be made? It makes me tired that we are constantly defending our faith. It makes me tired that people outside of these walls look at us as if we are mindless idiots, following manipulators who use a pulpit to share words like this. These words make me tired. They make me angry because the person who said these words has a very large pulpit with many people listening to him. And he's sharing ideas about a God that I know nothing about. Because this is not the God of love. This is not the God of peace. This is not the God that you have taught me. And yet people outside of these walls hear these words, and we are all a part of that. We constantly are under a microscope. Everything we say, everything we do, as we profess ourselves to be Christians, is under a microscope. The problem is that there are many who profess to be Christians who are under that same microscope, and we have to defend ourselves. We have to defend a faith that has taught me to love my neighbor. That's what my faith teaches me. We often sing a hymn when we gather, "They will know we are Christians," I believe is the name of it. There are some more knowledgeable with hymns than I. That kept going through my mind. They will know we are Christians by our love. The problem is they know we are Christians by our silence. By our silence that is deafening. This whole problem of being under a microscope is not new. many years ago, Paul began ministry in a very new faith movement, people who were followers of the way. And Paul started churches. He started a church in Corinth, which, as Danny has said before, was like the New Orleans of the ancient world. Many cultures, many different people coming together in one place. It was very hedonistic, very crazy. Paul started a church there. He left and he was ministering in other parts of the world. And he began to hear of problems in this church. So he wrote a letter to this church that we know as 1 Corinthians. And in this letter, he addresses some of those concerns. He offers his advice and his counsel to this church who did not have the luxury of the Holy Scripture that we have today. The Gospels had not been written. These letters are what they had to understand this faith by. So Paul addresses their questions and their concerns through the first number of chapters, and then we come to chapter 9 where Paul kind of shifts a bit. It almost seems like he has to defend himself, who he is, what he's doing, what he is teaching. In our text today, we pick up and we read Paul talking about who he is as he shares this good news. For though I am free with respect to all, I have made myself a slave to all, so that I might win more of them. To the Jews I became as a Jew in order to win Jews. To those under the law I became as one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, so that I might win those under the law. To those outside the law I became as one outside the law, though I am not free from God's law, but I am under Christ's law, so that I might win those outside the law. To the weak I became weak, so that I might win the weak. We read these words and our first thought is, well, Paul is just putting on a face for whoever he's in front of. I'll be like you, so you'll listen to me. But if we pay attention to what is said, I became as a Jew. I became as one outside the law. Paul was getting into the world where these people were. He was getting where they were so he could communicate with them the good news of Jesus Christ. So it wasn't that he was taking on new personalities. He was understanding where the people were. He was communicating with them where they were. And why did he do all of these things? I have become all things to all people, that I might by all means save some. I do it all for the sake of the gospel, so that I may share in its blessings. Paul was willing to do whatever it took. Paul was willing to get down in there and be poor with the poor and weak with the weak. To understand what the Jew was going through, to understand what those under the law were going through, to be with them, to teach with them, to grow with them. Paul had a passion. I'm a Christian. I try to be. And what that means to me is that every day, everything I do, everything I say, I try to remember those words that we read. I try to share this good news of Jesus Christ. It is my passion. The reasons why it is my passion are deeply personal, but I will share it with anyone. Anyone who asks, I'll be glad to share. Even some who don't ask, I share it anyway. But those are my reasons for this passion. And I believe that many of you have the same passion. I don't believe you just kind of wandered in here because you were driving down South Main and said, oh, I think I'll go sit in there for an hour. You're here for a reason. You are here because you have been called to be here, and you have responded to that call. So I believe you do share that same passion. But I have to warn you that as we act on this passion, it takes work. It takes study. It takes dedication. It takes a lot. Most of all, it takes guts. It takes guts to stand up and say, enough. It takes guts to stand up and say, I will not tolerate white supremacy in my community. It takes guts to stand up and say, wait a minute. There has to be a point of reconciliation here. We do not need to nuke North Korea. We need to work on reconciliation. It takes guts. But the good news is, we're not alone. We are a community of faith. We are a community of people who are responding to God's call to be God's light in this world. And the good news is, this fall, as a congregation, we are putting together a movement. For those of us who are serious about participating in our faith, for those of us who are tired of the silence, for those of us who are tired of having to defend the fact that we are Christians. We're beginning a discipleship movement where we will gather as a large group every quarter. We will worship together. We will pray together. We will take the Lord's Supper. We will learn together. To be a part of this only requires three things. Attend worship. Be a part of a discipleship group, a place where you can grow and learn and gather together and identify places to serve. And the third is to serve. To be God's presence in this world. As we speak, a team of people are putting together the particulars of this movement, and you will be hearing more about it soon. And I encourage you to participate. These last words of Paul that we're going to look at today, I think offer us a bit of encouragement. Because our task seems daunting, but it is not. Because do you not know that in a race the runners all compete but only one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may win it. Athletes exercise self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an unperishable one. So I do not run aimlessly, nor do I box as though beating the air, but I punish my body and enslave it so that after proclaiming to others, I myself should not be disqualified. We have good news. We have news the world needs to hear. We have a light the world needs to see by. Our silence is deafening, and our silence should cease. I do not want to defend Christianity the rest of my life, and I need your help to right this ship. As we close today, I would like for us all to stand, and I would like for us to share in a prayer as we collectively mourn the deaths and the anxiety, all the events that are occurring in our world. Let us pray. Where ignorance, self-love, and insensitivity have fractured life and community.
Give your light, O God of love.
Where injustice and oppression have broken the spirit of peoples.
Give your light, O God who frees.
Where hunger and poverty, illness and death have made life an unbearable burden.
Give your light, O God of grace.
Where suspicion and hatred, conflict and fear have challenged your goodness.
Give your light, O God of peace.
Eternal God, open the eyes of nations and peoples so that they may walk in the light of love. Remove the ignorance and stubbornness of nations and peoples, so that they may drink from the fountains of your goodness.
Amen.
As we prepare our hearts and minds to partake in communion, let us sing together.